2025 is almost upon us, and there are a ton of games coming in the next 12 months or so that I am really excited to play and to share with you on the channel, so stay where you are and we'll get into some of them right after I turn on the lights. Welcome to Night's Arcade. I'm Sleepless Night, and yes, I have been away for a while, but it couldn't be helped. A lot of the equipment here at the arcade is starting to show its age, and I wanted to start 2025 with healthy gear for a healthy year of gaming. So I took on a lengthy audiobook project to pay for it all, but I'm back now and I'm ready to fire up the arcade, so let's have a look at what's coming in 2025. First up is the latest entry in a gaming franchise I have followed since the beginning. And when I say followed, I mean played every single entry until I have every single achievement, every weapon, every skin, and have forgotten what my family look like because I've been eating through a tube and it hurts to turn my neck. This franchise is a familiar sight at Night's Arcade, and I promise you this latest entry will be no different. Sniper Elite Resistance releases on January 30th for PC and both current generation and last generation Xbox and PS consoles. It appears to be more of the usual Sniper Elite fare. There are rifles, machine guns, dams to blow up, Nazis lining up to get their organs on X-ray kill cam of the week, and Adolf Hitler to dispatch in doubtless many and varied amusing scenarios. There will also be a co-op option for story playthrough, kill list challenges, and a return of the PvP invasion mode, which was added in Sniper Elite 5. To this entry, Rebellion have also added propaganda missions. These are target eliminations and timed objectives which can be activated by interacting with propaganda posters found throughout your playthrough. The main change from previous Sniper Elite titles is the protagonist. Gravelly voiced Carl Fairburn is making killcam TikTok videos of his own somewhere, so our man behind the scope this time is British sniper and SOE operative Harry Hawker. This is Harry's first outing as protagonist, but he should be familiar to veterans of the franchise as he was Carl Fairburn's partner in the multiplayer co-op missions of Sniper Elite 3, 4 and 5. As this is the only first-person shooter franchise in which I tend to go a bit hardcore, it's certain to feature on the channel in some form or another, and in the run-up to release, I will be getting myself in the mood by teaming up with one of my fellow Redshirts to live stream melee-only playthroughs of a few of the Sniper Elite 5 maps, just as I did with Sniper Elite 4 way back in 2020, so look out for that. Sniper Elite Resistance is coming to the majority of current gaming platforms, and if you subscribe to Xbox Game Pass, you can play this for no additional cost on release day, January 30th. Number 2 on the list, and the first of Obsidian's major titles of 2025, is the long-awaited Avowed, an action RPG which takes place in the same universe as Pillars of Eternity. So those of you familiar with that franchise will already know more about what you can expect to see from this game than I do. Obsidian are one of my favourite developers, but a lot of this is due to my fondness for their particular brand of humour and lightheartedness, and less to do with the gameplay and story progression, which I find to be a little hit and miss in Obsidian games. I have loved several of their games, most notably Fallout New Vegas, and chuckled but been otherwise relatively unimpressed with others. So whether Avowed will get any time on the channel will depend on which of those it turns out to be when the game releases to PC and Xbox Series X and S on February 18th. Obsidian Entertainment is part of Xbox Game Studios, so I imagine we can expect to see this on Game Pass from release day. But I haven't confirmed that on this particular game, so don't quote me on it. One game I can promise you is coming to Xbox Game Pass on release day is first-person action survival Atomfall. Taking much of its inspiration from games like Fallout New Vegas and BioShock, this, the second entry on this list from Rebellion Developments, takes place during the early 1960s in the ordinarily tranquil and picturesque landscape of England's Lake District. 5 years into a nuclear quarantine zone, which seems to have negatively affected the tourist trade somewhat, if these scenes are anything to go by. The game's story takes place in an alternate timeline, which, while completely fictional, is based around the completely real nuclear disaster at Windscale Nuclear Power Plant, now known as Sellafield, in 1957, around which there was a certain amount of secrecy, but this seems to have had more to do with downplaying the potential danger to the public and much less to do with whatever this is. The survival elements seem so far to be limited to health and your heart rate, which can cause restrictions to the player's vision and hearing if it climbs too high while beating masked cultists to death with cricket bats. Because what else? I have never owned a cricket bat in my life, but if entertainment media have taught me anything, dystopian or apocalyptic Britain will have them lying around in every pub and garden shed, so I don't need to worry about that. Atomfall is not completely open world, but you will be able to explore a series of smaller, interconnected maps, from caves and bunkers to ruins overrun by exactly the sorts of insane cults I imagine sprang to life when Scaffoldpike Gift Shop finally ran out of Kendall mint cake. There are British tropes galore on display in this game, from wicker men and red telephone boxes to twee little village pavilions adorned with British flags in case the rest of the population of the Lake District had somehow forgotten where they lived. In fact, the only truly original element I've seen in the trailers so far is blue sky over the Lake District, which, in my experience, is complete and utter fantasy, and I applaud Rebellion for having the courage to colour so far outside the lines in that regard. Whatever cliches may litter the trailers, I am looking forward to playing it, and I will be there, complete with my government-issued bowler hat and umbrella when it releases on PC, as well as current and last generation Xbox and PS consoles on March 27th. When I last made a video like this one, it began with a crazy-looking game called Journey to the Savage Planet, which featured in my first ever co-op livestream series, so I am overjoyed to be able to say that Revenge of the Savage Planet is coming to PC and console sometime in May 2025, with, as the trailer states, more planets, more aliens, and more mishaps. What's especially nice about this is that the future of the Journey series was uncertain when the studio was closed, along with Stadia Games and Entertainment, a little over a year after being acquired by Google. Fortunately, Journey to the Savage Planet was not part of the original sale, so the Typhoon team managed to wrestle back control of their IP to bring us Revenge of the Savage Planet from their new studio, Raccoon Logic. Most people might be a little bitter about all that happened over there.
Together, we will get back what they have stolen from us. Kindred will rise again.
But Raccoon seemed to have put it all behind them.
Tell Tweed to back off, or we are going to rain righteous fury down on him.
And I'm sure none of that complicated development story will make its way into the sequel. Who wants to joke about that?
I regret to inform you that you have therefore been made redundant. Your final check has been sent. We thank you for your service, and we hope you eventually find a way home. Good luck.
Turns out Raccoon Logic want to joke about that. Making a joke out of everything that ever happens is my kung fu, and I think Raccoon just became my new spirit animal. We are going to new alien planets full of completely new, tiny alien creatures to study them in completely new and original ways, with a vast array of completely new tools. It's single player, it's online co-op, it's couch co-op, it's third person now, which is great for those of us who suffer with motion sickness, and it is coming to PS4 and 5, Xbox Series X and S, PC, but very definitely not Google Stadia. I will almost certainly be playing this on stream with one of my Red Shirts buddies, so look out for that when it releases sometime in May. A whole month as a release window might seem a little vague, but developers seem to be catching on to the fact that announcing a specific date and then delaying the game irritates gamers more than simply not announcing a date at all. So all the games from this point on have somewhat vague release dates, and they will get more vague as we go on. The first of these non-committal titles has already been pushed back from 2024 and is now scheduled to enter early access in the first quarter of 2025. Redemption Road's genre-bending, time-traveling medieval sandbox strategy thing is so insane it's hard to wrap my head around what the hell is going to happen, but there is reportedly a live-action film adaptation already in development before the game has even entered early access, so it's clearly getting attention. Developers Redemption Road Games have been hard at work on this game for 5 years, and to say they are more interested in plugging the game than themselves as developers is something of an understatement. They seem to be a very small team, and all that I was able to find out online without contacting a member of their team directly was that 3 of the devs were previously involved with the development of combat racing game Road Redemption, which seems to be a sort of post-apocalyptic successor to 1991's Road Rash and is presumably where the new studio got its name. The Redemption Road website has nothing on it but 3 email addresses and trailers for the 2 games already mentioned, and even the Kingmakers video is hosted on the YouTube page of the publisher Tiny Build. Whatever the story behind the enigmatic creators of this crazy-ass looking game, it's certainly intriguing. You play as a member of an elite task force sent back in time 500 years to 1400 AD to alter the course of human history using modern weaponry and tactics. And yes, you are correct, 1400 AD is already more than 600 years in the past, and we still don't have time travel, but what do you want from me? I had to get this information off a Wikipedia page, which I don't usually regard as a 100% reliable source of information, to say the least, but Redemption Road's website doesn't even have a description available for their own game. That is how much they are focused on making it rather than publicizing it. And that, more than anything, is what gives me hope for this insane title. I really want to play this game, and I want to say I'll play it on the channel, but the most recent gameplay video makes it look as though this game would melt my PC and pretty much any PC I could ever afford to buy. Hundreds of soldiers on screen at the same time with what appear to be fully destructible environments, some of which you have built as part of the strategy element. I mean, it's certainly the most interesting game I've seen teased for a long time, but will it be able to pull all of that off? I guess we'll see. Scheduled for much later in 2025, during quarter 3 or 4, is a game I doubt there is a gamer on Earth unaware is coming: Grand Theft Auto 6. What can I say about this? Rockstar is the only AAA studio I can think of that has never once let me down, and whose games are some of the only ones I still play week after week, year after year after year. Are the missions very linear? Yes. Do I care? F*** no, because it's all the stuff that you can do between the missions that I care about. The potential for utter chaos in worlds that feel more real than any I have experienced in more than 4 decades of gaming is the real reason I get excited about Rockstar's open-world titles. On top of which, the first trailer for GTA 6 opened with my favourite musical artist of all time, and then showed that we're returning to Vice City, which is easily my favourite location in the GTA universe. I don't know about you guys, but I was sold within 3 seconds, and this time we get not just Vice City, but the entire state in which the city stands to explore at our convenience. I honestly would not be at all surprised if this is delayed until 2026, but I'm hopeful that the end of 2025 will bring this much anticipated new entry in the GTA franchise. I often say to my community that my happy place is when a developer gives me a vast, empty expanse of sea, sky, sand, or space and a vessel to explore it in, which I must maintain, improve, care for, and just prevent from exploding. This is all the more fun, and in the case of my friends, much more difficult to achieve when I can invite other people along for the ride. Jump Ship, from Keepsake Games, scheduled to enter early access sometime in 2025, promises to deliver most of those things. It is primarily a co-op FPS game for up to 4 players, in which you can find yourself battling enemies on planet surfaces, or in space, on foot, or even flying around with jetpacks to achieve objectives and ultimately regain control of the galaxy from the machines which have taken over. The game has been compared to Sea of Thieves, Left 4 Dead, FTL, and most recently, Void Crew, and it does have elements of all those games in it. It's a first-person team shooter, but then it has the ship management aspects of FTL, and yes, it is a lot like Sea of Thieves in space, but it is PvE only, and, somewhat disappointingly for me at least, has a mission-based structure rather than open-world exploration. But there are still emergent events if I'm understanding the devs correctly. And every time the devs show some new snippet or element of the game, it exceeds my expectations, looking better than I thought it would and more detailed and fleshed out than I expected it to be. So I think it's very likely that I will quickly forget that I'm not able to yell out, "Second star to the right and straight on till morning." I mean, I will probably still say things like that, I just won't be able to do them. Early access will presumably be limited to Steam, which might keep me from playing too much of it on the channel, since I prefer the red shirts to play all together or not at all, and one of our number has no PC. But when the early access period is over, Jump Ship will be available on Xbox as well, so don't despair if you want to play it but only have a console. From a multiplayer crew to a single-player crew is the third in Runner Duck's Crew game series, this time taking us out into a post-apocalyptic wasteland to face off against factions of lawless marauders in Badlands Crew. Runner Duck's crew management sims have so far tackled 2 of my 4 favourite environments, having gone from 2017's Bomber Crew to Space Crew in 2020. Sand seems like something of a regression from that point, and although it does make one hell of a chat-up line, I hear it's coarse and rough and irritating and it gets everywhere. I was honestly expecting something like Submarine Crew on their next outing, as it seemed like a more obvious continuation of the style of gameplay we've become accustomed to from this series. But I can see where limiting yourself to horizontal exploration might have advantages when it comes to game design, and I have high hopes that Runner Duck have swapped an entire axis of navigation for something other than sunburn and mildly intimidating face paint. Heading out in your battle wagon to protect the innocent inhabitants of the Citadel from the roaming bands of Mad Max villain wannabes does seem like it's going to be a lot of fun. I can already see how satisfying it's likely to be to watch the vehicles that are chasing you spin out and tumble under a hail of gunfire, spraying wheels and other debris across the desert. And from the early gameplay reveal, they have added a lot of new features, including a much greater degree of control over character leveling, building and customization, and a dynamic campaign map which allows you to plot your own routes and set up forward outposts as you push into enemy territory. I'm also hoping they've addressed the difficulty balancing issues that I felt were present with Space Crew. Bomber Crew got this just right, in my opinion, but I did feel as though Space Crew punished you way too hard for failure. And while it wasn't impossible to get back in the fight, it did often mean a long and tedious trudge through many lower-level missions if you were to attempt the same thing again with anything like the equipment and training you failed it with the first time. If that happens again with Badlands Crew, I doubt I would ever finish it, to be honest, because, I mean, who would dare to head out into battle without a decent drummer? Whatever happens, I'm sure to play this on stream because my viewers and I have a special relationship with the Crew games and a certain way of streaming them, which has meant my chat have entertained me while playing them as much, if not more, than I have ever entertained them. Back into space for the next game on the list, and a highly anticipated sequel, first announced in 2021 with a fourth wall-breaking teaser that is everything I have come to expect from its developers, Obsidian Entertainment. What I wasn't expecting was for them to return with another trailer just a few weeks ago at the Game Awards announcing that The Outer Worlds 2 is scheduled for release in 2025. I am more excited by this announcement than I expected to be because while I found The Outer Worlds to be a little disappointing in certain areas, it did have heart. And I was really hoping they would return for a sequel which included, as the trailer itself points out,
everything that should have been in the first game.
What that means to Obsidian, of course, is likely very different from what it means to me. Overall, I felt The Outer Worlds was too linear, too restrictive, and it felt a little thin in places, but Obsidian's trademark humour and character kept me playing it. The game was great, I just wanted more of it. And again, if the latest trailer is to be believed, that's exactly what Obsidian hoped to provide.
More action. More weapons. And more graphics.
I had smaller, niggling little gripes, which I hope that last joke about graphics means they might have addressed this time. Like, okay, I realize we don't actually get to fly our spaceship, and that's fine. I don't mind. But would landing animations be out of the question? Just something that doesn't mean you asking me to leave the ship and go aboard that space station, which I can see out of the window we are still at least a mile away from. I know it seems like a small thing, but you put so much effort into making this game look gorgeous, and then shattered the immersion at location transition by pulling the video game equivalent of a street magician telling you to close your eyes and put your fingers in your ears while he makes your card disappear using magic. I'm certain I will enjoy The Outer Worlds 2, and I have enough faith in Obsidian to believe them when they tell us we ain't seen nothing yet. No release window other than 2025 yet, but when it does release, it will be available on PC and current generation PS and Xbox consoles. And this is yet another game which you will not need to spend extra money on if you're a Game Pass subscriber, as it will be on the subscription service from day one. 2025 looks like being an insane year for Game Pass subscribers because the last game on my list will also be there on release day, and I have left the best till last. Or at least I hope I have. It's been a long time coming. It's being made by a completely different studio this time, and we still really haven't seen much in the way of actual gameplay yet, so I'm perfectly aware that I'm going out on a treacherously slender limb when I tell you how amazing I think Fable is going to be. I was first introduced to the Fable series by a friend of mine in 2006 when there was still only one in existence, and in spite of Lionhead co-founder Peter Molyneux's endless list of unfulfilled fantastical claims, I have been a fan of the series ever since. It's humour again, you see?
Not all stories have happy endings.
And heart. I can look past a lot of flaws and empty promises if the game makes me laugh, and I can see the charm behind the sexually transmitted disease it gave my character for chatting up a girl at my job as a bartender, because being a Balverine-slaying hero of Albion might sound great, but it doesn't pay very well. I'm probably not selling this very well to those of you who have never explored the franchise, so I won't go into any of the even more unnecessary realism that Lionhead saw fit to put into this sword and sorcery RPG, particularly in the second iteration. But despite all of that, I really have missed playing Fable games, and I can't wait to get back to the gorgeously detailed world of Albion, meet its honest and friendly inhabitants,
Wanker.
and then save it from chickens and whatever else threatens to destroy it.
Yeah, well done.
There is usually a lot of British comic talent on display in these games, and this time is no different, with Richard Ayoade and Matt King voicing two of the characters we've seen so far, and Stephen Fry apparently reprising his role as Reaver from previous entries in the series. I would imagine there's a lot riding on this for Playground Games, but it's easily the game I am most looking forward to from the coming year or two. There are a couple of other games I'm hoping to play next year, but didn't mention in detail for one reason or another. Spacecraft looks as though it will be great, but since all we've seen so far is a teaser trailer which tells us next to nothing about the game, I don't know what there is to say about it, really. And it may surprise many of my long-time viewers to know that I'm thinking of checking out Metal Gear Solid Delta when it releases in 2025. But I did play Metal Gear games in my PlayStation days of so long ago, and since the franchise is now coming to Xbox as well, I think I might give it a look. There is one game which I imagine many of my subscribers will have noticed is conspicuously absent from this list. And there is a very good reason for that, which I'm afraid requires an entire video of its own, so I'll make one, then get back to you in the new year to explain in more detail why that game was not on this list. Until which time, you can catch up with me and my lovely community in the Sleepless Night Discord server, or follow me at any of the places linked in the channel header or in the video description. 2025 is set to be an exciting year for this channel, so please leave a like if you like this video and subscribe and ring that bell if you want to see some of the upcoming content I just mentioned. But until the new year, from Nights Arcade, this is Sleepless Night saying nighty-night.